Karen Moore with the Department of Environmental Protection is going to moderate this session, and it's all about recovering more materials. So Karen, all yours.
Thank you. Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Session 2, Recovering More Recyclables. I am Karen Moore, and I'm the Environmental Administrator with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection over the Waste Registration and Recycling Waste Reduction section. So I'm very anxious to hear about recovering more recyclables. For 2020, the recycling rate for the state of Florida was 50%. And that does include renewable energy, that does count towards recycling. Traditional recycling was at 42%. So of course there's certainly more room to recycle and capture more recyclables. Starting us out today, thank you. Starting us out today, we have Michael Pratt, Senior Sustainability Specialist at Sonoco Products Company, and he will be talking about all and on recycling, increasing recyclability through collaboration. So welcome, Michael.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. How do we advance this slide? Yep, there we go. So I appreciate everybody being in attendance. It's my first time attending this conference, and it's been really exciting thus far. So as Karen said, we believe there's opportunity to collect a lot more material, and we've been focused on that through our efforts here recently. So looking forward to talking to you all today. And as we look at what I like to cover, I thought it would be useful to start out with what our approach is as a company. So some of our sustainability highlights, who we are, what we do, that sort of thing. I know some of you all may be familiar with us. And then we'll kind of touch on the why behind it, look into what's influencing those decisions, and then additionally the work that we've done around one of our iconic containers. So we know that there's a lot of material out there that's not collected at a high rate. So the case study that we'll show is specific to one particular package, but we think it can apply to a lot of others as well. So when we look just real high level at who Sonoco is, you may have heard our name here and there, but we are, as of last year, a $5.5 billion company. Recent acquisition will put us over that $6 billion mark this year. So we have 19,000 employees across 300 operations in 34 different countries. We believe this gives us a really great perspective across a number of materials and certainly the global landscape as well. Another fact that we're really proud to talk about is the fact that for 3 years running now, we've been listed by Barron's as one of the most sustainable companies. So something that we put a lot of effort around and something that we believe is paying off. So just a little bit more, digging in a little bit deeper as far as what we do. A lot of you all in here are probably familiar with our recycling division. We do operate 5 curbside MRFs. We also operate a number of different commercial facilities as well. And then we also have our S3 group who helps our customers divert material from landfill. So we're really active in the recycling space. And then outside of that, we're a major producer of consumer, industrial, and what we call all other packaging. So on the consumer side, you're probably familiar with a lot of our products. So we make flexible packaging material. We make rigid paper cans, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. And we also make rigid plastic packaging for a number of applications for a lot of the big brands out there. On the industrial side, we do operate 10 paper mills in the United States alone, many more globally. And we also make wooden reels, tubes and cores, Sonoco, things of that nature would fall into that category. And then when we look at our all other categories, some packaging that's a little more unique and a little more tailored to specific applications. So it's things such as healthcare packaging with our tech acquisition, thermosafe, so packaging things like vaccines here recently and other commodities in that space, and certainly a lot in the industrial and specialty plastics as well. So I hope that kind of highlights not only do we have a global footprint, but we also play in a lot of different types of material as well. And then one that's kind of hot off the press, hasn't made it up here yet, but we recently purchased several facilities from Ball Metal Pack. So in addition to fiber, plastic, et cetera, we now also make steel and aerosol cans. So we kind of see the landscape when it pertains to a lot of different materials. And then kind of looking, there's been a lot of conversations here earlier in the past few sessions around corporate goals and commitments and the why behind what we do. And so we're proud to say that since 2009, we've had a 24% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, which in addition to that, 33% reduction in direct emissions from our operations, so something that we're proud to keep working on. Another big addition for us is a 40% reduction in water usage. So as I mentioned, we do operate a number of paper mills, so a lot of those gains or reductions have come from those operations, something that we're constantly striving to reduce even further. And then one that I think really speaks to kind of today's conversation is our calls to be recycle or calls to be recycled. So it's a goal that we've had for a number of years. We have an 85% goal, and last year we're proud to say that we kind of crossed that threshold and achieved 86% equivalent to the weight of packaging that we put into the market. We either recycled or calls to be recycled 86% of that, so a number that we continue to focus on moving forward. And certainly, as I mentioned, our MRFs, our commercial facilities, a lot of that fiber material is going into our paper mills, so we do produce 100% uncoated recycled paperboard with greater than 85% recycled content. So we're trying to make sure that the material that's being collected ultimately results and ends up in packaging down the road. So really the way that we do this, you're going to hear me talk about this quite a bit here over the next few slides, but it's really fairly basic. So we focus on the product, on infrastructure, and on partnerships. We know that all of this has to work together to be successful. And so when we talk about product, it's really working with our customers, our suppliers, our R&D team to make sure that the packaging that we produce is designed correctly. So we want to design for recyclability in mind. We don't want to have additives, other components that make that package difficult to recycle or contribute to contamination. So that's a really big focus for us, something that we spend a lot of time educating both internally and externally to make sure that we're following the appropriate design guides, whether it be AFMPA, APR, all of those big material focused organizations. And when we talk about infrastructure, I don't think we need to tell anybody in this room, but certainly it's important that we focus on what happens at a MRF. We understand that's a really important part of the supply chain, something that we focus on, and as you'll hear me talk about here in a little bit, we spend a lot of effort on as well. So in this space, we're really making sure that we're at the cutting edge, that we understand what the capabilities are, what the potential is, whether it be robotics, NIR, artificial intelligence, and then even getting into upcoming technologies such as chemical recycling and other things of that nature is really important that we continue to look at those moving forward. And all of this cannot be done alone. We understand that it takes really a collective group to make headway in this space. So we're really proud with the partnerships that we've made, as I mentioned, with our customers, major brands out there, with our suppliers, but also with academia. So we sponsor an initiative with Clemson University, the Fresh Institute, where they're focused on a number of innovative packaging designs and reducing food waste. And then certainly other pre-competitive collaborations with other companies in the space is really important for us as well. So on these next few slides, I really just wanted to give some background to help kind of anticipate and kind of tell you where we're coming from, where the industry is feeling pressure from, I would say. So to that point, one way that I thought we could do this is by looking at a case study of one of our cans, or one of the packages that we produce. And so certainly it'll be a little more tailored to this product, but as I mentioned previously, I think that the work that I'm about to show will and can be applied to a lot of other formats that don't necessarily fit into a well-defined kind of mold in the industry right now. So the one that we've been highly focused on is our rigid paper container, something that's been around for decades and decades, something that's pretty iconic when you look out there in the marketplace on shelves and stores and whatnot. So this is a three-dimensional paper can that holds a variety of products, coffee, powdered infant formula, chips, nuts, dough, things of that nature is what we're talking about. So typically it has a metal bottom and then some form of easy open end, and then most of the time our customers put on a removable plastic cap. So in addition to that, it does have a barrier inside, a very thin barrier, to make it a hermetic product, to make sure that the product inside doesn't spoil and we don't have more food waste than we need. So something that's very key to us. And when we kind of take a step back and look at the why behind all of this, I think as consumers, we all realize that once we're finished with the package, we really have two choices. Do you want to put that package in the waste bin and it's going to go to landfill, or do we want to try to make a better outcome of that material? And as long as it's not going to be disruptive in the stream, do we want to recycle that material? And I think that's really what this boils down to at the end of the day, is that commitment to ensure that more of our products are able to be recycled. And so when we looked at the life cycle assessment of this package in particular, what we found was that there's about a 38% greenhouse gas emissions benefit when you recycle this product versus going to landfill. So something that we think is very key to why we do what we do. And in addition to that, I mentioned that it does have a metal end on it. And so in the situations where that gets recycled through the steel stream, we've been working with the Can Manufacturers Institute, who further validates that, according to their estimations, there's a 75% greenhouse gas emissions reduction when steel is recycled versus having to make new steel. So something that we know is very, very, very key. And then if we look towards kind of the industry in general, so maybe not as specific to our package, but really to the industry at large. So corrugated containers, very widespread out there, mixed paper, newspaper, three commodities that I think a lot of MRFs are aware of out there in a very high volume, I would say. And so what we did was look at the EPA's greenhouse gas emissions factors. And so this is pulled from their website to understand what the impact was. So the information on the prior slide was specific to our package, but I think what we see here is that the same trend continues. So when you recycle material, in this case corrugated containers, 87% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. So this is really why it's so key to get these materials, but also other types of fiber products and all material for that matter recycled. So I think the other benefit to this is that not only our company, but a lot of other companies are making commitments. We've heard it already today with scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. And so engaging in activities such as this can really help to reduce those emissions. So we really think this is key to why we do what we do. And the last topic, I know we've touched on it a little bit already, but something that's definitely driving the industry to certain directions, but that's really EPR. I know we're all probably familiar with it, so I won't spend a whole lot of time talking about it. But it's definitely something that we've seen coming. We know that 2 states passed EPR bills, Maine and Oregon last year. As you can see here, I think this even may be a little out of date now, but there's another 18 states or so that are thinking about it, that are considering it. So we know it's something that is coming. It's going to be a reality in some form or fashion here in the near future. So as we think about that, we know there's core materials out there, OCC, plastic, etc., but we are also cognizant that there's a lot of other material out there that can be collected using existing infrastructure, and that's really what we're focused on. So over the next few slides here, this is really going into what we've done around the paper can, as I mentioned. So when I kind of spoke about it, I did mention that there's typically a metal end on the can, which is on the left side of the screen there. And we also have an up-and-coming technology for certain applications where we put a paper bottom on it. So we get rid of the majority of that steel material, or aluminum for that matter, and put a paper end on that product. And so what this slide is aiming to illustrate are the potential pathways that we think these cans can be diverted in a MRF and really ultimately in the supply chain. So With our steel bottom can or metal bottom can, we envision two pathways, depending on what a MRF has at their disposal to sort. So we understand that there's, 300, 400, maybe 500 MRFs out there, if not more. They all have different infrastructure, they all have different equipment, so it's really critical that we understand what's possible in each scenario. And so in that case, with our steel bottom can, we believe that the steel stream is a viable pathway, and we'll touch on some of those details here in a little bit, but we've done our homework as it pertains to that. In addition to that, we believe the poly-coated paper stream, there's typical grades out there, maybe like a grade 52 or something along those lines. We believe that that would be a really suitable place for it as well. And then when we talk about our paper bottom can, we believe the mixed paper stream would be a great place for that, in addition to the poly-coated stream. So just depending on what technology is being utilized by the particular MRF, I think would really play into which one of these would be more advantageous than the other. And when we kind of look at the total problem, we don't want to be narrowly focused. We want to understand the broad landscape. And I think we can probably all agree that these are really four key components of that. So on the collection and access side, do consumers, are they able to recycle it? Is there messaging out there in their community that tells them, hey, this is an accepted material? So something that we're actively focused on, and I'll touch on it here a little bit later. On the sortation side, something I've spoken about a little bit as well, but that's really a big key. Once the material is put in a recycling bin, goes in a truck and gets to a MRF, what's going to happen to it? And we've done a lot of work there as well. Processing, really important. So if it's going to a steel stream, what is it doing at a steel mill? Is it providing value? And certainly if it's going to a paper mill, what's the story there? And then certainly if there's not an end market for it, we can't call it recyclable at the end of the day. So it's really making sure that these four items fit together, and look forward to talking about these. So in our opinion, this is where a lot of the work started, was on sortation. So, as I mentioned, we do have 5 material recovery facilities. We understand the nuances, I believe, to these facilities. But what we did was commission 3 independent MRF flow studies, some at external MRFs across the country. And really the goal here was to understand how our cans sorted in these particular applications. And so what we found was really interesting. So the graph on the left here is showing the percent steel in the can versus how effective a magnet was at capturing it. Obviously, I would say that every MRF is using magnets to capture material out of their stream currently. And what we found was that for cans that had at least 38% steel, the magnet recovery capture rate was on par or better than an all steel can. So this really speaks to why we believe that particular pathway is suitable. So what we found was that steel cans at the 3 MRFs that we were collected somewhere in that 80-85% range, and so that our cans were right there as well. And then kind of moving on to, I would say, equipment that's more widespread today, a little more high tech, and that would be optical sortation. For MRFs that are using that to sort fiber or other types of commodities that our package would be a good fit for, we've worked with several equipment manufacturers to understand that a label can be created, that there's a setting that those MRFs can use to detect our package and sort that effectively without creating additional contamination in the stream. And then as we look a little bit further down the road, we know that there's constantly innovation, as we've been talking about. And so we've worked with AMP Robotics quite a bit to create a label in their particular system, and something that's certainly an iterative process. It takes time, it takes several revisions to get that exactly right. But something that we have right now. So we know that in one of our facilities, we can go in the software, put a checkbox beside that label, and it will start picking those cans. So something that we're really proud with. We do see those becoming more popular in MRFs as we move forward. And then as we look even longer scale than that, and then I think that would be the Holy Grail technology, something you may have heard of. It's a little more popular in Europe right now, but something that we want to, as I spoke to a few slides back, we want to make sure that we're seeing the total picture of what's possible and making sure that we're on the cutting edge of that. And so for anybody who's not familiar, Holy Grail is really using digital watermarks that are invisible to the human eye. So it's about postage stamp, using pixels and molds in the label, if it's a plastic item, things of that nature, to really identify and classify what the particular package is. And the concept is that then you could have cameras in your MRF, which would read those, no matter if it's crumpled, crushed, etc. There should be enough of that, let's call it a barcode, an invisible barcode, to detect and to accurately sort that material. So several trials have already been done in Europe, and we've seen really great success, not only for the project as a whole, but for how those, or for how this technology can benefit our particular can. So something that we're proud to partner with. And then when we talk about the end market and kind of the processing, certainly an important piece. So when we start on the left side here, we've done a number of paper mill trials, not only at our facilities, so we've done ones 6 or 7 here in the United States, we've done ones in Mexico and Italy, using different equipment, different markets certainly. But we're also proud to say that we partnered with Sustana at the end of last year. That you may be familiar with them, but they operate a couple of facilities. We were up in Wisconsin. And what we found was that our cans are really able to be easily processed in their facility. So this was really a great validation for us. Obviously, it's one thing to do a trial at your own facility, but when there's other companies that are willing to help out, and this goes to the partnership piece, and kind of prove that your theory is a reality, I think really speaks volumes. So something that we're really proud to have done there, and something that we're looking forward to partnering with other paper mills as well to do trials such as that. And then on the right side of the screen, the steel stream, it may seem a little counterintuitive, but we've worked with a number of large steel reprocessors to not only get us added to their bale specifications, but also to get letters of acceptance. So something that we believe speaks volumes as far as the ability to accept in our product in that particular stream as well. And so coming down to access, so where does this all come back to? And I think for anybody who's kind of works with brands or on-pack labeling, or even with the FTC Green Guides, what this boils down to is to make certain recyclability claims, you have to hit certain thresholds as it pertains to access. And so typically for the most common on-pack label, that threshold's 20%. And then as we look for widely recyclable status, that's 60%. So what we did was commissioned a study of where we stood. You have to start somewhere, and that's what we did. Middle part of last year, we found that our can was accepted at about 14% access across the United States. But we've since brought on a dedicated resource to talk to communities, municipalities, and MRFs about the benefit to adding this particular product in the stream. And what we're proud to say is that I think that number is even a little outdated, but we've gained about 3 to 4% access in that amount of time. Something that we think will continue moving forward as people understand the suitability and the benefit of collecting this material. Additionally, I know a lot of this is focused on the United States, but we've also been working across the globe. So in the United Kingdom, we've worked with the ACE in the United Kingdom on their bring bank system. So something that we're now collected in that particular collection system, which gives us an additional 25% access to residents in that country. So something that we think is great to collect more of this material. And actually a fun fact, that material gets processed at one of our paper mills there in the United Kingdom. So as we talk about kind of impacting that supply chain, something that we're really happy to do.
2 minutes.
Okay, thanks. And as we kind of look at kind of the scale as well, as far as the future state, as far as what can happen, an example is across the globe. I think what we've seen is that a big retailer in Canada, Loblaw, has had us on their green list for a number of years. So I think it really speaks volumes to what is possible. Same thing for the Canadian labeling system. So we have a check locally label for our can in Canada. And then as we look across the pond a little bit with our work there with the ACE bring bake system, which I just referred to, we've made strides. So they realize the effort that's gone into this, the suitability of that particular recycling stream, and they've moved our can from the red, which is pretty much the bottom, to the yellow, which indicates a more suitable recycling pathway for that item. And then something that we're proud of as well, I mentioned an up-and-coming technology for us is the paper bottom can, and we are proud to say that we do have a check locally label for that package. So kind of bringing it all home here, I hope this has helped illustrate a little bit. I know there's a little specific to our particular format, but I think for packages out there that are not your PET bottle, that are not your corrugated container, it takes work such as this to educate and kind of realize what's possible. And through our access work, talking to communities, through our sortation work to prove what's possible, what happens in reality, and then the same thing with the reprocessing trials. I think when you take all of these in total, you're really able to see how we can kind of create a circular process for certain types of packaging. So with that being said, that's all I got, so I appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you, Michael. Next up, has Beth arrived? Beth, are you here? Okay, you want to join us? Thank you. We have you next up on the agenda here. So we do have Beth Willis, Marketing Manager at Butler Paper Recycling, and she will be talking about life today in the recycling market. So welcome, Beth.
Hello, everybody. How are you? I've really never done this before, besides talking to church, maybe. But anyways, I'm Beth with Butler Paper Recycling. I've been in the industry for about 30 years. We have 3 recycling plants down in the Hampton Roads area in Virginia. We have one in Franklin, Virginia, which is right beside the old, if anybody remembers, Union Camp Mill, excuse me, which is now ST Paper. And then we have one in Suffolk, Virginia, which is our main headquarters, and we have one in Norfolk, Virginia. And then we've been in business for over 100 years, the Butlers have. And, but anyways, so, I mean, we all know, I think, about, kind of wanted to focus on transportation. I don't have a presentation like Mike did, sorry. You did a great job there, dude. I know what to do next time. But anyways, like, I mean, transportation, we're all involved in it somehow, one shape or form, and it's just really becoming, an issue in our industry right now. Before, even with what's going on, in the world today, with gas prices going up and so forth, just hard to find drivers. It's, there's just the freight rates have gone just crazy, went back from, when you can move a load of paper, for 300 miles, for $600, now it's costing $1,200. Not sure what anyone's going to do about that, but, it's kind of, I don't even know what else to say. Besides, I'm just, I'm glad that the conference was able to happen again. It's been, a long time, at least for me, I enjoy seeing, the, normal faces, the new, the old. It's like it's been through a lot of changes. And I appreciate, Gene Jones and his team that, puts this on. It's a great networking, opportunity. I know it has been for me. I've made a lot of really close friends in the business, and I deal with a lot of really good mills. Sonoco being one of them. I do a lot to their Richmond mill because my plants are close there, and great people, and and it is. I mean, it's one thing he did say. There's a lot of material out there to be recovered if we just got to get out there and really, keep aiming, pushing people to recycle. And, well, you would think with the way prices are today, everybody would be recycling. And, But, you know, in saying that, you know, that's really all I have to say. Besides that, you know, it's a great conference, and, you know, you know, a lot of really good people, and that's really about it. So.
Can you tell us a little bit about your products and?
Well, we don't actually, we're not, you know, we're not Sonoco. You know, we don't make the product. We just bring the material in so the product can be made. So we're mainly, you know, baling cardboard, mixed paper, office paper, you know, plastics has became a really, you know, really hot item, you know, with what we do. You know, my Franklin plant actually is mainly focused on rolls. We do a lot of rolls out of our Franklin plant. You know, we run our own. We run our own trucks. You know, we export a lot just because we're at the Norfolk Pier. And then, you know, we do bale pickups. You know, we do a lot for Sonoco. We do a lot for West Rock. You know, for everybody. You know, for all the big guys there. We're just little guys. But yeah, anything else? Any questions?
And we'll be holding questions till the end.
Okay.
You seen any shifts in your markets and the material and where you're getting the material from?
Oh my gosh, yes. You know, the whole COVID thing has just been, you know, a downfall for everybody. You know, this, you know, I don't think anybody can really say what's going to happen, you know, here in the next couple months. I mean, I've been doing it for 30 years, and, you know, I've been through when, my gosh, people would tell me to just give me a load of cardboard or, you know, pay me to take their mixed paper, you know, and it wasn't long after, you know, when the prices got up as high as they are, you know, that it just crashed. And it's really a scary, to me, it's a very scariest industry right now. You know, it's like how much longer, you know, can the mills afford, again, transportation, you know, along with these high, you know, prices that it's costing to get the material, you know, into the mill. So, you know, to me, it's just it's a little scary. But I've seen it, you know, we've been through it before, you know, we've always bounced back. You know, some people have, you know, you've got a lot of mills, you know, these new mills that are just popping up everywhere. That's the scariest thing, in my opinion, is, you know, where are these mills going to get, where are these mills going to get more material, you know, without taking it from another mill. It's got to, like, where, you know, we got to figure out a way to, you know, and I think once when things just start, you know, settling out, I mean, it's just been shaky for the last 2 years, and, you know, I think material will start popping back up, you know, more businesses are coming up, you know, but at the same time, more mills are coming up, so, you know, it's you know, that's just a little scary, but yeah, so, that's about really, anything else you suggest that I might say? Yeah.
I think that's it for now. We'll have questions at the end. You know, I'm sure people will have questions.
Okay,
At
all righty.
the end, but thank you.
Yeah. Do I sit up here?
Yeah, yes, please, part of it. Thank you.
So,
Okay, guys. Thank you again, Beth. Next up, we have Bradley Austin. He is the Director of Operations with Marquette County. He is from Michigan, so I'm sure he's appreciating the weather a little more here than what he left up in Michigan. I think he mentioned, what'd you say, 36 inches of snow, or?
In 2 days.
In 2 days. Oh, wow. And us true Floridians, we can't even fathom an inch or a half an inch. I think it's been 10 years since I've seen a flurry, so. Anyway, Bradley will be talking about rural recycling from inception to implementation, so welcome, Bradley.
Is this a button just to move slide? Okay. I love the afternoon session right after lunch. It's Always an interesting time for a nap. Listen, thank you for having me, Bradley Austin, Marquette County Solid Waste, Upper Michigan. I've been with Marquette County for about 20 years, and I've seen the facility from the ground up, which certainly has given me some advantages over the past 6 years since I've been the director. I started as a landfill operator, and I've worked in and out of the MRF and the solid waste for the last 20 years. So excited to be here and tell this story about a MRF that we built in the pandemic with a fair amount of challenges, but happy to say that we're online and we're operating. So I guess we can start with a little bit about Upper Michigan, referred to as the Upper Peninsula or the UP. It is at the end of the earth. There's 15 counties in Upper Michigan. They are all rural communities, and the entire region is about 200 to 250,000 people. It's a big mining, forestry, and tourism industry where I live. And beauty and the beast, there's a lot of beautiful places in Upper Michigan, but there's also the beast. And challenges, we hear transportation and other, comments throughout the sessions. It's something where we live that we have to account for, not only just in transportation, but in collection and every facet of the operation. So beautiful place, but come in the summer if you want to visit. A little bit of organization. We are a solid waste and recycling authority located in Marquette County, about 65,000 people. There's 22 municipal owners, 19 townships, 3 cities. It is governed by a board, but not by 22 municipalities. It's a 7-member board, which is kind of a cross-section representation of our constituency. And we do lead a regional effort to increase access to recycling in Upper Michigan. We have or had, and I'd say we still do, but we're working on it. We had a regional problem, little access to recycling. Education was poor. We did not have existing recycling infrastructure, and we didn't have a whole lot of advocacy for recycling. This was pretty commonplace in our landfill. We just looked at this and thought we could do better. Simple as that. No one way or the other. A lot of recyclable materials going into landfill, and I think the first time I saw a full bale of OCC ejected out of a waste truck, I thought it was time to maybe take a look at things and make a change. So we started talking about a regional solution, single stream MRF infrastructure, curbside recycling, cart launches. We wanted to improve drop-off access, both curbside and at drop-off. We needed outreach that was designed for MRF accepted, which is a very important point in any program, but it's something that we focused on. And we needed to impact this beyond county lines, because with population at 65,000 and tonnages estimated at 4,000 to 6,000, we didn't get a lot of return phone calls from equipment manufacturers when we started talking about volume of material. So we knew we had to impact it beyond the county lines. In the meantime, while we were thinking about what we might do, we continued to run a residential dual stream program, which had been in operation since about 2012. 1,500 tons per year, very small market, in-house engineered equipment. This is a unit that our staff built in order to process recyclables. Not really efficient, but for the volume of material we had, it fit the bill. We were doing 1 through 7 plastic bales and mixed paper and OCC bales mixed together and putting those to market at a extremely low value. In the late 2018, we started feasibility and funding. We hired a consultant, developed a business case. We got partnered with the Closed Loop Partners. The state of Michigan provided us a loan or provided us a grant. We also had a private loan, and ultimately the MRF was funded by a blended funding approach, including all of these partners. We did install the MRF into an existing structure which saved us a significant amount of money. We needed modifications, and creative construction was required. Machine has OCC, ballistic, motion floor bunker. We've got 1 robot. It was designed to allow for equipment upgrades, which we are getting prepared to do now. It has a fire over protection system. There's also a source separated glass processing equipment with this, which we'll talk a little bit more later. So we built the MRF in 2019. smack dab in the middle of a pandemic, which was quite a challenge. Machinex was our equipment vendor. These are just some photos of the different components. This is all pretty standard fare to operators in the room. I mentioned earlier about source separated glass. One of the things Marquette County is doing a little different is we took glass out of the recycling bin, which make sure you explain yourself before you take things out of the bin. It's important, and we did. We were not managing glass the right way, and our reality was it was quite a distance from market. So we bought this Andela equipment, glass processing. We're making an aggregate material and a sand material. We're sanding our own roads with this material. We're going to build a road in one of the adjacent counties this summer with this glass material. We've partnered with Michigan Tech University. There's a lot of R&D happening with this material to hopefully bring it into the concrete and asphalt industry. So we're excited about that. So although the uphill on the outreach side has been a challenge, when we bring the materials to our constituents and say, if you separate the material, this is what we can do with it, we've had a very positive response. One of the projects with the aggregate was a landscaping project done by the municipality. So we've asked residents to separate it. We're processing it. Township officials come back, pick up a load, they landscape their entire township grounds, their sign, all their landscaping. So the residents are able to see what's happening, which is an important part of the story. We ask people to do this. We should be coming back and showing them what is happening with what we're doing. So this has been good message in Marquette County. The summary: this was about $6.8 million project cost, feasibility and planning, 18-19 construction, 19-20. We did a cart launch in 2021. So as municipality programs or municipality projects go, this thing moved extremely quickly, and a part of that was because of the funding and the availability and the deadlines that we had to meet. As I said, we did do this in the pandemic, so that was interesting also, as we're flying crews in and out and somebody would get sick and we'd have to separate and segregate, fly another crew from Chicago. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts here, but ultimately we got it done. We have increased recycling access, participation, and capacity in the region, which until we built this facility, there wasn't any. We've improved education, and it had a significant regional impact as we're seeing more communities now trying to improve their program. Now they have a place to go, which is important. A little bit of operations update. Obviously, it's a pretty small market. We've got 11 or 12 full-time sorters. The decision that we made very early on was to tie the people that work in the facility to quality, because we know in the end that will be very important. So we are full-time county employees with benefits in our MRF, and there is a cost to that, but at the end of the day, we believe it will pay dividends. There's also a 3 to 4 person support staff, maintenance, baler operator, outbound forklift operator that goes along with those sorters. Cost per ton right now bouncing between $125 and $130 a ton at our facility. Outbound tons went from 1,500 under the dual stream to 8,500 tons we did in 2021. So we've seen a substantial increase in material, which has a lot to do with bringing in those adjacent counties. So that regional concept is something that's taken effect in our area. Again, I mentioned earlier, upgrades. You know, we didn't build this facility with eddy current, which might sound a bit strange, but in Michigan, we've got a bottle bill, and we didn't see a lot of aluminum at our facility. But we realize now that we do need to put it in. So it's going in October. We're excited to bring it on. We're looking at some other upgrades also, some additional robotics potentially. And of course, it's come with a fair amount of challenges. I mentioned transportation, weather. You know, the volume in itself was something right out of the gate that, you know, we struggle with. When you go to municipalities and you say, build it and they will come, you get some strange looks at times, especially in a region that wasn't doing a lot of this, but what we knew was that a lot of people wanted to recycle. They just needed infrastructure. They needed to be taught how. So we have had a lot of impact, as I said. We launched over 5,000 carts. We've doubled the inbound. Municipalities' recycling rates have increased, in some cases over 100%. 5 counties served in a region now. This little map of Upper Michigan, Marquette, you can see in the middle. Basically, all the counties that we touch right now are the ones that we're seeing the most material from, and that has a lot to do with transportation. The further you get away, the more challenging it is. We are seeing a lot of entities that are surrounding Upper Michigan or our Marquette County now that are getting grants to improve their programs, which in turn will push more material to the regional MRF. And we want to feed that system, continue to. Keys to success, well, there's probably more than one, and I'm not sure, I think money probably comes first, but I think even before that, I mean, we talk about the willingness to put in the work. I'm not sure who's in the room, and if you've got folks that are in the municipal side or on the government side, but this is something that if you want to do it, you better believe in it, and you better believe in what you're doing, because you're going to have to sell it to municipalities, and if you want money, better put on your salesman hat. Motivation, certainly, believe in what you're doing, what you want to do, and it never stops, right? I mean, we asked for this, we wanted to get bigger, we wanted to create this for our region, so in turn, here it is, and you're counted on to make it happen and continue to make it happen day after day. Collaboration, without saying, municipalities, cities, township, universities, et cetera, et cetera. Again, with this being something fairly new, there's a lot of traction, a lot of mileage here with a project like this in our area. And certainly partnership, some who we've been working with over the past 18 to 24 months. As I said, Machinix is our vendor, Fire Rover, Resource Recycling Systems, Eagle, State of Michigan, Closed Loop Fund, Recycling Partnership. These are all people that, you know, answer the phone when we started and continue to answer the phone day after day as issues arise. It's been great to work with everybody. Less landfill, more UP to enjoy. This is some of our new branding, Recycle 906. 906 is our area code in Upper Michigan, so this worked out well. Very excited about the project, looking forward to our future and our growth. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bradley. Very interesting presentation. I know we have quite a few rural counties here in Florida. It doesn't seem like it if you go to South Florida, but if you come up this way, we do have some rural areas and face some of the same challenges you guys are facing, and we're still trying to determine how to work with them, and the hub and spoke method, it sounds like what you guys are doing. So you know, like you said, just the collaboration is so important when you're dealing with limited resources.
Right.
So thank you. Okay, so next up we have John Kemp, and he's the Manager, Manufacturing Operations Support of CP Group, and he will be talking about the Tortoise and the Hare, defining single stream efficiencies. So welcome, John.
All right. Afternoon, everyone awake? I see some heads down, but what I'd like to talk about today, I'm John Kemp. I've been with CP since 2008. Prior to that, waste management for about 6 years, market area maintenance manager, and also worked on efficiencies in all the plants that I was in charge of. I had up to 22 plants at one point. Prior to that, the Pelts Group, who I had 7 plants with, worked with Hare Pelts directly with the operations and the maintenance across the board. Prior to that, I built the stuff. But in the beginning, I was an aircraft mechanic. And I kind of honed my troubleshooting skills there and utilized those to really pinpoint how to take efficiency to the next level. And then from that, I went into the bottling, and that production actually took me to the next level. And what that taught me was through precision of actually looking at what I do and what I can provide for the production aspect of it, I blended that. And that allowed me to really hone in on specific areas of what the production does. And now with recycling, it's a whole new thing. It's like chaos, but you're trying to hone that in and isolate specifics in that area. So what do I do? My perspective, I guess, what I want to share with you is when I walk into a plant, and what do I see? What do I look for? And strategically, how do I go about improving an efficiency of an existing plant, whether it's new, old, what have you. I would first actually go into the beginning of a plant and go to the forward aspect and look where the loading aspect is, how that loader actually gets out there and picks up that material and puts it into that bin. And if this is consistent, and if it's not consistent, that's where you start to really look and observe. Stand back, watch, and observe. One of the largest things, the biggest things that I have been able to do in my industry is if I stand back and watch, and I watch, and I watch, eventually what you see is things that you can improve upon, things that a movement here, a movement there, and you smooth that area out. You work with the loader operators, you work with the pre-sorts, and that kind of stuff. And that then allows you to get consistency in the front end. Then you can move to the rear end of the facility. And at that point, then I would target specifics. I go past all the operators, past all the equipment, and I work myself to the back of the machines. And I start looking at the residue line. As I look at the residue line, what I'm looking for is you can look at the whole pile and understand that there's all types of recycling going out the back end. But how do you actually go in there and pinpoint what you're looking for and then hone in on each one individually, specifically, and run that back in the system? I ask myself, how did it get there? And then I go about that one specific, find out one target that you want. If it's PET, if it's newspaper, whatever that case is, find that one and work myself back to the system. And how did it get there? What's the avenues that it took to get there? One could be through the actual mechanical devices, the machine itself. It can go through post-fiber sort where it gets thrown in. It can be knocked off and be put back in. It can be put into cans and then picked up and thrown in there as a large bunch that goes through and it blows out the back of the system. So once you've figured out the how, then you ask yourself, why? Why did it happen? Now, let's say you're looking at a PET. And again, new or old equipment, it really doesn't matter. This pertains to everything. But once you just take a PET, for example, you go back into a system and you look at, say, an optic. Why am I missing it? What are the things that is supposed to happen in order for that machine to work as efficient as it can? Troubleshooting, 101. Are the lights working? Is it clean? Is the belt working? Is it properly timed? So you begin to look at that machine specifically and then target everything that you want to have happen. You need to have distribution correct. If the distribution is not correct, you're not using the full width of the machine, therefore you lost in efficiency. If there's a bubble or something underneath the belt, what happens there is you move a piece of material and it comes out of time. You lose that. That one bottle for 1 second, every rotation at 500 feet per minute multiplied by 60 minutes in an hour, 60 minutes in a day, or 60 minutes in an hour. And then from there you go forward and you can see where that one tick, that one thing that you can make, that one change, can improve not only efficiency, but recovery. And the recovery is what we're all looking for. These systems can actually do a good job, but you have to be on top of it. You have to start from the beginning and go all the way to the back. And then from the back, go all the way back through the beginning. Follow the material, follow each material to its source. And then begin to adjust. And then do it again for each material. Go back to the back and target another specific, such as aluminum. You go back to the source, where did it come from? How? Why did it get missed? Is it, we all have cameras that we use on slow-mo. Very simply, stand back, hit that slow-mo, run it for about 5 or 6 seconds, and then feed it back to yourself. You can see if a can is going too fast, where it never actually got settled down to jump and make that movement forward. Or if it made that movement forward, is it going too fast where it's being forced into a forward direction instead of using the actual Gauss and making it jump up? These are all things that you can play with the machine to make it do a better job than what it was doing prior to. So observations on those machines are absolutely the most important thing you can do. And it's just not the machine. You can go back 1 or 2 or 3 conveyors prior to and see the delivery method. Is it being taxed to one side? Is it actually using the full width? Is it overloaded? Is the material on top of the material? And again, you stand back and you observe and you watch. You don't want to make forward fast thinking, just make an adjustment. You want to actually watch and make sure each adjustment has a beneficial to that machine. And then, once that machine is done, you go to the next, and you go to the next. And eventually, you work yourself through the system. And once you've done that, then, at that point, now you're running consistent, you're running efficient, but now you look at the uptime. Is the uptime, 95, 96, 98%? Because if it's not, then you need to slow the system down. You need to get consistency to run that system. An example I thought of on like 20 occasions, and I'm trying to get this all out correctly, but if you get on a highway and you're set for a course of 8 hours and hit the cruise control, there's nothing better than hit 75 mile an hour. Arms out, open the window, you got your coffee in your hand, people in the back are happy, and it's just, you cruise down the road. But everybody knows there's nothing worse than having screaming kids in the back. You're up and down on the highway. You hit 80 mile an hour because you want to catch up to where you were before because you lost time. They only hit the brakes and slow back down to nothing. It's frustrating. There's nothing more frustrating than that. And when a plant runs like that, it's frustrating. It frustrates the sorters because they have no rhythm, right? It takes them all day to get in the rhythm, and they're up, down, start, and they have no rhythm. And then they're frustrated. And then the plant manager is frustrated. Just, pull back a little bit. Sit back and then observe and watch. Slow it down. Start to move material. Get consistent. Start running the material. Get consistent. And really, once everyone gets in a routine and an emotion and gets going, everyone's happy, right? Because now your sorters they're in a groove, and then they're doing a better job. They don't understand that time is just flying by because they're in that groove. They're constantly moving and doing something. They're not frustrated, stopping and starting. So once you've established that, and then you can go back to the rear of the system one more time and look at that efficiency, right? You've done that, and now you start to look for that Achilles heel of the system. You bring up your system a little bit more in speed, and by doing so, you're going to go back again, and this takes several days to do this. This is not one of those get out there in 10, 15, 20 minutes and make these rash decisions. This is something that happens over a period of days and days. And you go back and you systematically do the same thing. Go to the front of the system, check it, make sure everything's good, go to the back of the system, and then run your system, go back through and check each commodity, make sure all the equipment is up to snuff, running what it should do, what you paid for, 96, 98, 97%. And then you turn it up a little bit more. A couple to like 1 or 2 hertz or 1 or 2%, just a tiny bit. People don't notice that. They'll never see it happening, but you do it a little bit at a time. And then you go back and you start washing your equipment again. And what you're going to find yourself doing is you're going to start increasing your throughput. Not only by increasing your speed, but also by basically efficiency. You're leveling out the system so that it runs from the time you turn it on to the time you turn it off. Now, you go to break, you come back, you fire it back up, you do the same thing. From the time you fire it up, you want to run consistent until you go to the next break. You're not looking for all these ups and downs and ebb and flows in the material, highs and lows. You really want to hone in on the consistency of the speed, but also by looking for the Achilles heel of your system. And what is that? An eddy current? Is it the width? Is it the fiber falling off the back of a screen that overloads an optic that it can't see, that it falls on top of another piece? These are the things that you systematically go back through, and you constantly look. And I've had the opportunity to be in a lot of systems and all over the United States and all over the world. And there was always one thing that throughput is the tons per hour is the number you use for every system. I do X amount of tons per hour, but in reality, the entire system is based upon volume, right? The volume downstream is dictated by separation, singulation, and then on the screens being segregated by gravity and friction, and constantly moving those up and down a degree or two throughout the course of the day. And it can matter by 10 or 15 or 20 degrees, or in the morning like in Michigan, where you have to run them harder, faster to get the rubber warmed up, and then it starts to move, and then you might have to back it off. But these things that you do to work the system, it just never stops. And to think that you just go out there and fire it up, push the go button, and then 3 days later you walk through, you can't do that. So the person that's trained inside the facility really needs to have this, not jump in and fix anything, but step back and watch everything at one time. Observation, standing back, looking at it, a whole area. What is it doing? What is it doing wrong? How are the sorters reacting? Are they swimming? Are they grabbing? Are they pushing? Can they see it? Are they actually doing 20 to 40 picks per minute? You know, if you get on the back of an OCC screen and the overs of that, and this guy's only picking 10 picks per minute, and the OCC looks great, you say, my OCC is great, it looks beautiful, but then why do you have a guy there, right? So an efficiency would be bump up the OCC screen a little bit. Let's get that guy doing 20 picks per minute, because that's what we want him there to do. So that pushes more OCC across. That gives that guy consistency and something to do. He's pulling off. Therefore, you offload the back of the system with that smaller OCC, and that makes it efficient on the next piece. Screens, systematically going through screens. You have a high, you have a low, right? So gravity goes up, gravity goes down, right? And that's the simple, articulating of the degree of angle. But then you also have the speed. So I see so many times that people just have it going as fast as it can go and laying down. Well, what does that do? That means either A, your discs are worn out, or you're not changing them enough, or that's how you run it. And that's what they know, and that's how they just walk in, and I see that presented to them every single day, and that's okay. But it's not. Walk yourself to the back end of a post fiber sort. After the screen, after the sorters. Pay no attention to what's happening to the belt. Pay no attention to what the sorter's doing. Simply look down in the hole as the material falls off in a waterfall, and you can see all the different commodities that are being lost, prohibitives, right? Now, why aren't they grabbing them? Well, you look up, you see the sorters. Are they actually doing 40 picks per minute? Can they do 40 picks per minute? Can they see the material? What efficiency can you do to improve that? Would it be to slow it down, speed it up, maybe raise an angle of the screen, share a little bit of material going on the backside to the container line if we have a piece of equipment that we can share that burden with? So these are the things that you can do to consistently improve your system. Basically you have to have a marriage with your system. You have to be able to go there on a consistent basis and monitor the system, monitor the outputs, monitor the residue line, and yeah, that's about it. I don't know.
Thank you, John. So, great presentation and information given by all of you, and we'll open it up for questions, and I have a couple questions too. So while you're thinking of your questions, I'm gonna kick it off with a question I have. And John, this question's for you, but I think it applies to all of you guys. How has the waste stream changed MRF efficiencies through the last few years? So I can think all the way back to dual stream. You know, in Florida, the Florida infrastructure has been around for quite a long time. In a lot of ways, we were leading 30 years ago with MRFs.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, 10, 12 years ago, here comes single stream along, and all of our dual stream MRFs had to hurry and upgrade us to single stream. And then you change and you add the packaging, and then COVID comes along, and here comes the cardboard. Again, it's interesting to watch this, and it's interesting to see how MRFs adjust to this. So, and again, I think this will apply to every one of you guys. Again, the question's, how has the waste stream changed MRF efficiencies?
Well, what I see all the time really is, obviously everybody talks about the fiber's gone, right? So the large fiber. But the mailers are still in there. People haven't changed the way they've eaten. So they still go to the grocery store. They still get the same commodities. They still get the same box foods. So the chipboard's still there, right? The same glass. So that side has not changed. But yeah, we want to run the same amount of throughput to the system. And our older systems were designed for fiber because it was a 70-30 split. Nowadays, it's probably maybe 40% paper, real paper, right? And then you have this huge gap of containers that you have to run. The back end of the systems were never designed to do so. So a lot of what you see nowadays are improvements or retooling of the back end of the systems to accommodate that. Well, it used to be 3 people doing PET. I need 6 people, and they can't even do it side by side anymore to run the same throughput. Because the volume in a square has not changed, right? We still fill the hole exactly the same. But the mass balance has changed entirely. So the pounds per cubic yard maybe went from 160 down to 130, down to some places down to 90 pounds per cubic yard. So we still fill the bin with the loader. We still have the same level of material going up. It's just light. So therefore the throughput or the tons have gone down through the system. And what do? We push up, we push harder, and therefore we have more material going out the back door. And that's the whole thing to this, is to identify that and then get back to where Achilles heels are into the system and then back that off.
And what about the rest of you guys? I know you are all dealing with material coming through, and how have you seen the waste stream change and impact, your material, your MRFs? And I know, Bradley, you've only been around, your MRF's been a couple of years, so you may not have been around long enough to see that yet, but, have you seen anything?
Well, I mean, not really. It really hasn't changed.
Right. So no, you haven't seen more cardboard, because of the COVID effect or, the Amazon effect and.
Yeah, but as far as, I don't know if you're talking about the quality or if you're talking about the grades of the material that's,
Right.
what's changed, if anything's really changed. Basically, no.
Right,
Really,
right.
no, I really haven't,
Haven't
seen
seen
a lot
much
of
of a
change.
change.
Well-
I just really
The
haven't.
one of the biggest changes on the fiber side is going to be the packaging, right? Everything's coming from Amazon, the boxes. Who doesn't order from Amazon, get the boxes this
Right.
big? They're perfect. They go right in right in the can. And they fall right through an OCC screen, right? Because an OCC screen is usually 8.5 by 9, 8.5 by 10. So from a square looking straight down, you have this perfect box that goes through, and you have more of the browns getting in with your fiber, which is, again, why we have so much more mixed paper now than we ever had. I know Sonoco, you love and eat up that mix, because that's their source.
Right.
But,
And what about?
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, in Sonoco, what about you guys? I know
Yeah.
you definitely see a change in how you're handling material.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll approach this a little bit different, maybe on the design side. I think certainly that's something we're seeing with the conversation with our customers, so these big multinational brands, is really twofold. So I think it's probably, I would describe it as like a shift towards trying to be more monomaterial, to kind of help, not necessarily from a sortation standpoint, which is kind of what we're focused on, but maybe that next step afterwards, which is reprocessing. But in addition to that, I think there's definitely a lot more focus from those packaging engineers on the understanding of the impact that they're having. So if they're making a black tray that has, carbon black colorant, we know that that's not going to be detected by an optical sorter. So it's working with them to understand, why are you using black? Can you go to natural? Okay, if that's not an option, can we put an NIR detectable colorant in there? So it's design changes such as that I think is really critical. And I think there's a lot of good organizations out there putting out a lot of good work to work on that and kind of provide guidance. And then the other thing that I've really noticed is a lot more questions about what can we package in paper. So kind of a shift in materials. Okay, we're not running as much maybe newspaper or whatnot and MRFs nowadays, but I think according to what I'm hearing, there seems to be a larger focus on what can we do in paper that we weren't doing 5 or 10 years ago. And then just one other comment here, I think that you know, an industry group, the U.S. Plastics Pact, with their recent list of problematic and unnecessary packaging. I think could be useful as we look. You know, we all know that MRFs only have at least right now, have a dedicated amount of bunkers. We can only sort so many types of material unless we expand them and put money into them. So if we can potentially, you know, there's packaging choices that are made. We use PVC for a reason in a lot of cases. We use polystyrene, but if we can shift those to more widely recyclable ones, PET, HDPE, where there's a larger infrastructure right now, then I think that could be beneficial moving forward. So those are some of the changes that I've seen.
Definitely. And I liked what you mentioned about the watermark. That was interesting.
Yep.
What about questions from the audience? I know we have some questions. Do we have a microphone? Yes.
Hi, my question's for Bradley. What's the total population served? You said 5 counties, but I didn't quite catch the population. And then, like, what's the arrangement with the municipalities? Do they pay you? Is there cost sharing, revenue sharing, or any?
Sure. So 65,000 residents in Marquette County. The entire region, 15 counties, is between 200 and 250,000. Typically, in our area for out of county, we've just signed an agreement with one of the adjoining counties to receive their material within the next few months. And it's a deal that's structured where they elected to provide some capital funding for upgrades. So we're going to have a reduced tipping fee out of county for them because they've provided some capital dollars. So we'll be using that arrangement moving forward as a template. Currently, right now, just straight out of county tipping fees for material delivered to us, we're charging them at the gate. But in the future, we see it in more of a long-term agreement format moving forward.
And I think we had another question up here from Keena.
Hey, Bradley, this is the same kind of question for you. How did you get started? So was it you going out to the local government saying, hey, we want to do this regional deal, we want to have this authority, or was the local governments looking for somebody to do that? Who started the whole process for you?
I think it's probably a combination thing. Funny, for myself, it started at these type of shows. I became the director in 15, and like I said, we knew there was a problem. It was just how we didn't know exactly how to solve it. You got to understand something about our area. No infrastructure, really. I mean, there was a little bit of recycling going on in Upper Michigan, but not a lot. So I'd say that was one thing, kind of seeing what was going on in the industry, and I think bringing our people into that and making them understand and realize that there's another world out there. It's not just about put it in a hole and bury it. I mean, landfills are engineered to deal with these things, we understand it, but you saw the pictures, right? When you just have all this OCC and all these different materials being landfilled, just didn't make sense. We knew we could do better. We didn't know exactly what we could do. And I think the public, it's interesting, you know, an authority to me implies some level of leadership. And I guess when the residents come to me as a public, or us as a public entity, and they say, hey, listen, this is something we want to explore, we want to look at, I think it's our job to do it. We did. It's funny, it's always about cost, but in Upper Michigan, nobody was asking the question if people were willing to pay. And what we found was we're providing a service and they are willing to pay. So you have to ask the question. I mean, it seems that, you know, some of this right out of the gate is I'm afraid to bring the issue to the table. But you have to ask that question, and in our case, I think it was a combination of things. But it was really just having a conversation and advocating recycling, which was something that was lacking in our area.
That's awesome. Other questions? We have a question in the back.
Yeah, another question for Bradley. What is your, do you know what your total diversion from the landfill is? And I'm not just talking single stream, but what was your total diversion before and after you put this in place from the landfill? And is all the residual from all the counties single stream going into your landfill now? And is there any issues surrounding that?
Yeah, it was one of the first bridges we had to cross because being a closed county, intergovernmental agreement would not allow solid waste from outside of a county. So it's something, it was something we had to tackle right away. Looking at I guess the body of work, I'll call it, or as a whole, the percentage of what was going to be going into our landfill versus what was coming in and was going out as a commodity. In our county, it's understood that there's going to be a small percentage of material that's going to go in. We're utilizing the glass and a lot of the fines material that we have for construction in our landfill dumping pads, adding it in with rock and construction materials. We do have the bag issue, just like, you know, most places. Diversion rates, it's a little early. And one thing that's interesting is we've got our own county that we're trying to track and illustrate what we're actually diverting versus all of these counties all together. What we do know is that, you know, in 2022, we'll probably do between 10,000 and 12,000 tons of material as opposed to 1,500 in, you know, when the dual stream was on. It's a work in progress. We'll see. Ultimately, those are materials that were all being landfilled before and are now being put to their most useful light to market. So that's kind of a broad stroke. There's a data piece there that we'll continue to work on over the next few years to really kind of hammer that down. And I think materials are made up of different things, right? Plastics, what do you get per cubic yard? Lowest impact glass, basically sand compacted down. I mean, we've got a lot of different, it's not a perfect science, but we'll put that together in the next couple of years. Thank you.
Do we have other questions from the audience? If we don't, I have a question again for Sonoco. So I know you mentioned that you had more, or you guys had greater than 85% post-consumer in your paperboard. What about your other products? On average, you know, are you guys using post-consumer material, and about how much are you using? And do you have a corporate policy have you set a goal for post-consumer recycled content?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great question. And so what we'd like to say is that really we're out to meet our customers' needs. So in cases where we have a product that we've been producing for decades, such as our paper cans, then that's well established. You know, we're not going to make changes to our paper mills necessarily. We're already 100% recycled, 85% post-consumer, so we feel really good about that. And so what we've committed to is helping our customers meet their goals from a plastics perspective. So what that means is that, you know, from a technology perspective, we're exploring the percentage that we can use in our products. So when the customer is willing to pay for that increase, I think one of the earlier sessions, that price differential between virgin and post-consumer recycled is growing. So we understand that there's a delta there that has to be dealt with somewhere. So there's a number of our brands that have been supportive and have asked for that. In those cases, we're seeing on the plastic side upwards of 30% recycled content. So there are examples. I think it's growing, but it's something that the customer and the brands really have to be committed to see that work long term. So that's just one example.
That's great. Thank you. Then I'm going to pick on Bradley a little bit. I know you said you guys have the Andela glass crusher, and years ago we dabbled with innovative grants, and we saw some glass crushers come along, but the problem was maintaining them. It got very expensive to maintain them. Have you guys, I guess, budgeted for that in the future, and the upkeep and maintenance of it? Again, it was really great in reducing it to that fine sand. Sure. But it was just, and again, this was 20 years ago, so I'm sure technology has caught up, or I hope it has caught up. But yeah. What are you guys seeing with that?
Well, I still probably a little bit early. This was the smallest unit that Andela offered, which was about a half ton to a ton per hour, and it was more to satisfy the residential side of things, right? We had a lot of people who wanted to do this. Of course, glass is roughly, 2 to 5% of what people put in a residential bin. So although it's iconically recyclable, there's not a lot of that material. So we started small. We've only been running it for about 12 months. We have a 5 and a 10-year capital plan for all of our equipment. What we anticipate is in Michigan, in Upper Michigan, is that there'll be a much larger project to this. The glass is currently being held in Detroit, so if we can somehow bring the R&D together with Michigan Tech, we'd bring the 9 distributors to one central location and process all that glass in Upper Michigan and create those products versus putting it in trucks and driving it to Detroit to be recycled. So there's another piece to it. But it's a hammer mill and it's a wear part, the original question.
Right,
So at the end of the day,
right,
you're going to have things that you're going to have to replace and repair. And I think you've talked a lot about it. Before failure, getting after these things early. I keep hearing the same theme, proactivity. I mean, these technicians, people doing this work, it's critical to maintain, minimize, reduce downtime. This is no different.
Right.
These are wear components that need to stay out in front.
Are you guys working in the commercial at all, or right now is it just residential?
It's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of both. Mostly residential, but we've got a fair amount of commercial business that comes in. It's pretty steady stream OCC.
Yeah. Are you getting glass from the commercial sector?
We've got one distributor in Marquette County that retrofitted their warehouse. They're no longer hauling to Detroit. They're bringing it directly to us. So we're starting to see that transition. Challenge for us will be, again, you can only build this so big because, again, build it and they will come. And, we said, hey, if we do this, it's going to happen. Well, you're kind of painted a corner. You got a number. And now here we are 12 months later, and we got to knock a wall out.
Right.
So
Right.
it's good, and it's got its own challenges. So.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, and I'm going to ask, and I know we weren't really focused on organics, but have you guys looked at organics at all?
We have organics cells, processing cells at our facility for leaves and brush. We do some food waste and composting there. We're not creating any Class A topsoil that we're currently selling right now, but we do have the ability for disposal at our facility. And any topsoil we do make, we use it for our own construction projects on site. So
That's great.
Yep.
That's great. And I know, Michael, you talked about you guys working with Clemson with the Fresh program.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? What is the? Do you have more information you could share with us? On that?
Yeah. Actually, it was 2 weeks ago. I think we just had an online summit. We were hoping to have that in person, but Sonoco's really been partnering with Clemson for a number of years. They sponsor a building up there and really the packaging science department at large, I would say. But maybe 3 to 5 years ago, they committed to providing a set amount of money every year for projects and to fund whether it be for food waste, packaging design, etc. So it's really working with not only the students but with the professors to fund those projects, try to build out that next wave of packaging and those sort of details. And so we do things such as webinars and conferences, and we'll actually have one in person, crossing our fingers, here in September. So it's something that we're really proud to partner with them with.
That's great. Right. Yeah, and it really again plays to the collaboration. I think all of you guys have really focused in on that aspect. It takes a village. Other questions from the audience? We have one in the back here with the microphone. Yes.
This question is for Sonoco. Is there a way that we could learn more about your initiative? Do you have a website dedicated to it or a report that you could share?
Yes, absolutely. We have a host of literature out there, but love to talk to you afterwards and kind of share that with everyone.
And I think we had another question, maybe a couple, one right up here, and we have the mic coming.
Great, thank you. Relative to films, thin films of all sorts, for the MRF operators, how big of a problem is it for your respective operations, and how are you dealing with it?
just like a lot of programs, we asked to not place bags in the recycling bin, and that varies depending on which county we deal with. It's a huge issue in the OCC screens for us, and I'm sure folks can attest that they get wrapped around the shafts and it causes issues and downtime. We take care of our pre-sort people pretty well. We make sure that we got those folks coffeed up and ready to go, because they got a very important job in that process. And removal of those, it's not something that we market, and I had mentioned in my presentation that really focusing on MRF-based outreach. Don't Google what's recyclable. Go to your website, what your county program can accept, and we show the pictures of the bags wrapped around the shafts and why. So when they click on it, they understand why it happens. We still see them. and you do what you can. But it can have a huge impact on the operation, and you could probably speak to that too.
Yeah, I mean, every plant you go to, the bags are always a problem. I mean, there's only so many innovative ways you can take something that's so light that it wants to just fly away when the wind comes, yet it's so hard to grab when it goes past a bunch of sorters and the machine goes, sucks it up, and it starts to plug that hole, and eventually, basically you have a conveyor, and it's supposed to be a separator. So it has to be tended to all the time. And a lot of counties and a lot of people really just, even California, no, don't put the bags in there. I've seen a lot of the local grocery stores bag your bags, bring your bags back, and I think that's probably the neatest one they have. But whether the people do it or not, the counties still, a lot of counties, not all counties, but they still have that as a program. It's been a problem. It's been a problem. It's going to be a problem. Now, with some of the newer equipment out there, we don't wrap as much as we used to. Right? We've kind of understood that this is here. It's not going to go away, and we've developed machines to actually try to combat that. We're better at it, absolutely. And we've developed some other airflow equipment, push-pull designs to vacuum that in certain locations where we can, and then pull those back to a central location. But they're going to go to residue. So still going to residue creates a problem as it gets to the landfill, and there comes that airflow again, and I've seen bags go 3 miles straight in the air on a wind.
Anything else from up here? What about other questions from the audience? Do we have other questions? Well, John, I'll ask one more question on that, and it may seem like a simple answer, but it may not be. Is there a time when it makes sense to run the residue back through? Depending on and I know you're going to say tweak your, become more efficient, tweak your problems.
I mean, I've seen it 100 times, and some people try to legitimize it, but the reality is, you've touched it once. Why would you want to touch it again? Now, there's certain circumstances, just like with anything, that say, okay, we had a failure piece of equipment. Well, the optic line went down, and we, instead of putting 20 people to try to grab it, let's run it and then run that through later at a lower. Okay, I mean, there's always that model, but as a continuation and run that loop, it's a continuous loop, and it gets worse and it magnifies itself. So a lot of people take that residue and say, we're just going to run it back and introduce it right to the front of the system. Well, that system already rejected it, right? It regurgitated it, and now you're going to give it back. It's going to take that regurgitation and then bring it back, plus all the new stuff that you put into it. So in a slow time, it basically, you've taken a pile that might have been this, and now it's this. And now you have to purge it, and it's the same purge. Why even send it through the system? You're taxing all the equipment, you're taxing all the people, and you're blinding what your equipment's supposed to do in the first place. So I say no.
Good answer. Other questions, guys? We have a wealth of knowledge up here. You take advantage of it. And you guys will be around at the break if there's questions, if anyone wants to come up and chat with you all. Okay, well, we're done a little bit early. I'm sure no one will complain. Getting a few minutes extra to go network and visit the exhibitors and have a little bit of extra time for break. We are due back in here at 3:30 for session 3, Recycling Technology.